Welcome, everyone, to our FWA storytelling series. A theme that we wanted to explore further was around the experience of self-doubt in leadership, and more specifically, the strategies and the tactics that empower all of us to move through our careers with confidence. So today, to talk to us about exactly that from the CEO's chair, I'm thrilled to welcome Shafiei. Shafiei is currently the president and CEO of DSA Signage, a role that she's held for 6 years. Her leadership extends beyond that to multiple boards, including as a member of the Board of Advisors for the College of Business Administration and Public Policy at California State University, Dominguez Hills, and on the board of directors for Rebel Vac Systems. Shafiei also holds an MBA from Harvard Business School. Shafiei's journey is rich with diverse leadership experience, and we are thrilled for her to share her wisdom and the insights that she's gained in leading with strength, conviction, and confidence. Shafiei, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I appreciate the kind introduction. Very generous.
Absolutely. Well, I will start maybe with a reflection on your leadership journey. Is there a time when you were on this journey where you felt a particular moment of just extreme self-doubt? And what were the things that helped you get out of that mental space and move forward?
I would like for it to be just one or two instances, but if I'm being absolutely honest, I think it's a recurring event that no matter how high you get in your career, you're going to keep going through it. I can tell you I had self-doubt as recently as yesterday. If you look at my background, I'm fairly new to the hospitality industry and restaurants, the 6 years that you mentioned. Prior to that, I was in heavy industrial manufacturing, basically with a company called Cummins that focuses on diesel engines and power generators and fuel systems and very, very manly things. So the norm for me throughout my 20 plus year career has been, I'm typically the only woman in the room, and it's just normal. That's how it's been. So self-doubt is almost normal because you feel like it's not just you doubting yourself. You always have a sense that maybe others in the room are doubting you, and it enhances your internal feelings. A lot of times when we are in a room where we have a lot of supporters, even if we doubt ourselves, I think other people's comments can like wipe them clean, and then you start feeling good about yourself and sit tall. But as I think back from the time that I was a service engineer fixing engines on semi trucks on the road to the time that I was running warehouses and supply chain for a turbocharger manufacturing, all the way till when I was managing billion-dollar revenues and 600 plus employees in multiple manufacturing facilities, I constantly thought I have to work 3 times as hard, 4 times as hard as my peers doing the same exact thing, maybe at a smaller scale, but 99% of them were men, white men to be exact. And it was the one scenario that really I can't shake it off no matter how many years go by, is I got promoted, but the promotion was so large that it skipped like a couple levels in the HR hierarchy. And the HR team was refusing to put me on the pay scale that the job was actually in, indicating that the job I held before that was 3 levels lower, and I was at the maximum of that one. And the most they could do, they could bring my pay to the next level, but not 3 levels up. So I was expected to do the job of this 3 levels up, the director level, but I was only getting paid for like a senior manager level. All my peers, who were men, they were all director levels like me. So when it got to the annual reviews, we all got into the same bucket and we all got reviewed at the same time. But they were making at least 40% more than what I was making.
How did you know? Did they tell you that? They told you
Well,
their salaries?
when I got to that level, I was high enough that I had access to the salary grade and ranges. And I was going by the minimum range for that salary grade. And
Oh,
that minimum, like the minimum you had to have to be in that salary grade was 40% higher than what my pay was. So they could have been 50, 60, 70%. I don't know. But at the very bare minimum, I was 40% lower than everybody else. So I brought that just makes you doubt yourself and say, maybe I'm really not good enough. Maybe they're doing me a favor, letting me try this job out, but I'm not really qualified. Maybe it's because my mentor is a powerful person in the C-suite and they're afraid to say no. Like I had every reasoning to justify to myself why they were doing it right. And I really didn't deserve to be getting what I was supposed to be getting. And I went through and I completed that job. I had the best KPIs out of all the facilities globally. And to be honest, that was the last job I held, and that was the point that I held it for 3 years. I finished the job, but once I got repatriated back to the U.S., I was mentally, I knew that I wasn't being appreciated. I was done. So I I just left and I went and discovered my value, and then they tried to bring me back in, and I was very honest and I said, I know I wasn't getting paid what I deserved, and I'm not even going to consider anything less than. And I gave them a number, and they just looked at me. I was like, I have other options. So, um, and as far as like how to tackle, I think surrounding yourself with incredible people that may have gone through it, and they can point out your positives, point out your strengths, remind you why you deserve to be there, is critical. My mentor, which she was more like an advocate, not just a mentor, she literally, her words were, I'm going to take off my company hat, I'm going to put on my friend hat, and I'm going to tell you you deserve better. And I want you to go do something different. You can always come back here, but I want you to go try something different. And because of that advice, I'm at DSA, I'm where I am, and we still talk. I still have great respect for the company that I worked for, but I don't appreciate how much they made me doubt myself
mhm.
because I wasn't properly, honestly, I wasn't properly paid, because they definitely promoted me multiple times. I got more and more responsibilities every year. That wasn't a problem. It was just, she's just going to do it. Like, just let her do it. She doesn't need to get paid for it. She'll just do it. And I did because I wanted to learn more. I had a goal. I'm always one of those people that is never satisfied with where they are today. So I have a 2 year, 3 year plan on where I want to be next. And I was very vocal throughout my career telling people, in 2 years, I want to have this role. What do I need to do to close the gap? And more often than not, people tell you exactly what your gaps are. So I would say yes to a lot of extra work. just to get the skills that I wanted. And part of it was I never thought I should also be compensated for
Mm.
the work. It was like, well, they're doing me a favor, letting me learn. So, it's okay if the boys make more. It's okay if the boys get invited uh, to the fancy conferences, and because there's a golf trip and show doesn't golf. So, you know, um, when you don't get to sit at the table, you start doubting yourself. Do I belong at the table?
Yeah.
But and I know I went on a rant, but if I was to summarize, honestly, the two things that helped me get out of it and step out of it and say, oh no, uh, I'm a catch and I deserve this, is one, when your peers or in a situation I'm in now, my employees remind me of why I deserve something. And the second one is when your support team, and that support
Mhm.
team could be close friends, it could be childhood friends, it could be your mother, it could be a sister, it could be an old coworker you try, it could be anybody. When that support system that you trust enough that they would give you constructive feedback, their
Mhm.
feedback is honest and they're not just trying to make you feel good, remind you of the things that are your strength and the ways that you're better than maybe your colleagues,
Mhm.
that helps you boost your confidence a little bit.
I think it's so tactical and so thoughtful. And one of the things that I want to hone in on is you mentioned how important it is if you're in the room and you're doubting yourself, how receiving positive feedback in the moment can really pull you back and center you back into yourself. And one of my favorite pieces of advice is when you're in the room, hopefully you can advocate for yourself. But what you want to build are people that will speak highly of you when you are not in the room.
Yep.
And having a mentor and an advisor that is someone who will speak highly of you when you are not in the room is incredible. I want to maybe ask you a little bit more about that, knowing that so much of your career was built in a very male dominated industry. How did you build internal advocates, whether it was men or women, throughout your career, whether it was peers, whether it was people in the senior leadership team? Like, what were the things that you did to build those advocates? And I think one of your answers may be around, or I want to make an assumption here that I believe a great way to build an advocate is something you identified, which is making sure the people with decision-making power know the 2-year path that you want to be on and saying, what do I need to do to get there? Because it's almost like a human emotion psychology of I am being vulnerable and sharing with you where I want to go. And I am being a willing participant for you to guide me on the right steps to take. Therefore, you're now invested in my success. Because if I'm successful using the tactics you gave me, you were right. So I'll pause and I would love for you to expand on that.
I think you nailed it. Honestly, I think most people who are going to watch this video are going to resonate with what I'm about to say. Oftentimes, especially right after performance reviews, or after somebody gets promoted and the announcement goes out, we sit there, and I've done this throughout my career, saying, what the heck? I worked so much harder than this guy. I did this and this and that. My attitude is better. I show up earlier. I don't take as much vacation. And nobody even like notices me, but he's keep getting promoted, or he just got another raise, or she like bypassed me. I'm so much more qualified. I have 10 more years of experience. This person just graduated college. How are they qualified to be a manager? Like those things, we've all been through it. And I think at some point, and I did that quite a bit when I was younger,
Mm.
and I would get frustrated, and it was showing in my attitude because uh, I'm one of those people that also gets a little bit sarcastic when I'm frustrated. So it would show. I would be snappy. I would make remarks that weren't exactly kind, or they had a hidden message underneath. They were sharp. And it wasn't really doing anything for me. One of the things that made a difference, we had a major facility tour. We had this facility that we were trying to actually move to another one, merge it with a different business unit. And we had the CEO of a $40 billion company uh, as the visitor. This guy was going to come in and basically talk through it and see does it make sense to move it. And they had allocated about an hour of his time to tour every portion of the facility. And I was one of the operations managers. I had the smallest assembly line in the plant. My product was like the old legacy turbos for trucks that are like, 80 years old. Like it was not the fancy robot line that did all the cool stuff. And, but to prepare for this, we were each tasked with like have a little summary to, in case he asks a question, you're ready.
Mm.
And I was in my area. I didn't know what my colleagues, all male, I didn't know what they did in their areas, their fancy new, clean assembly lines. But when they got to me was towards the end of the tour, and the COO just started asking a few questions. And I answered, and he asked more, and I answered. They were very basic questions, nothing groundbreaking, nothing fancy. Um, but at the end, he was like, "Remind me of your name again." And I told him. And he's like, "It was very nice meeting you." And that was it. The tour ended. They left. He's on the airplane, like the company had private jets. So he's on the jet flying back to Indiana, where the headquarters is. And he uses our instant messaging thing. It was before Teams. And I was like, this can't be right. Why would this guy message me? And I was like, hello. He's like, it was really nice meeting you today. And I was really impressed. Do you have a mentor within the company? And I had, honestly, I was so young in my career. I was like, I don't. He's like, would you mind if I asked somebody on my team to mentor you? I was like, would I mind? I would be delighted. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, why me? Like, I seriously, my exact words to myself, and I probably said it out loud, was, why me? Like, Russell has this fancy line, like, Kenny does this. And I made every reason why everybody else should be getting contacted by him and not me. And he just said, there is something special about you. You were so detailed, you know the in and out of your line. And I think you have room for growth. And I see some areas that could get polished. So if you don't mind, I'd like you to introduce you to one of my team members. I was like, thank you. And he hadn't even told my boss, his boss, like nobody. And then within a week, I had one of the VPs reaching out to me and introducing himself, say, hey, Rich said he met you and he wants me to start working with you. Can we have a monthly call? And then every time I'm in Charleston, we can meet in person and so on and so forth. And this little relationship ended up being one of the toughest feedbacks I've ever received on a
Wow.
regular basis. My goodness, he pointed out everything I was doing wrong, but he did it so gracefully, I couldn't even cry. I
Yeah.
was just sit there and be like, okay, yeah, I can see that. I can see that. And when he was leaving the company, he then introduced me to the president that had like 2/3 of the company under her wing, and she became my mentor. And to this day, like we are so close. I fly over to Indiana to go to her birthday party, like
Right,
that
right,
close.
right.
But it's being authentic, doing the hard work. Like you can't just slack off and expect to go far. Uh, some people will. If you go to investment banking, you go to private equity,
Mm.
depending on who your dad is and who you golf with, yes, you can do the bare minimum and get places, but our audience is hardworking women. So I'm gonna be honest. For us, do the homework, be mindful of your exposure. I think the best advice I got was PIE, PIE. Performance is the smallest cut of the pie. Image is 2/3 of the pie, and everything else is exposure. So that's your
What do
PE.
you mean by exposure?
Exposure is who is willing to go out there and talk about you, who is willing to put their neck out there and expose the good work you're doing. Because you're not going to be in every room, but who are the advocates that are willing to go talk on your behalf or about you without you even knowing?
Mm.
That's exposure. That's getting exposed to the board of the company. That's getting exposed to the C-suite, depending on the size of the company. That's getting exposed to decision makers, people who have a say in your career path.
Mhm.
It's also exposure in the industry because you're not going to be with the same company forever. Who is going to go out there when they hear so and so is hiring, say, I have the right person for you? She works for XYZ company. She's fantastic as this, and that. I think she'll be a good fit. You should talk to him. I'm going to introduce you. That's your exposure. Your image is what people think of you, how
Mm.
they see you, not how you see yourself in a mirror. And I realized I was looking at a completely different mirror than everybody else.
Oof. Show that is brutal. It's brutal because it's I love the idea of pie, performance, image, and exposure. Performance is something we can easily control. You don't need a lot of self-awareness to know what your performance is. Image is brutal because we do not have the same image of ourselves that others do. And so that speaks to the importance of a mentor within your company. It's great to have a mentor outside of your company because sometimes you need that for things that are confidential, et cetera, navigating things that you couldn't go to someone internal with. And one of the things that you mentioned was the very first mentor that you had, that he was very good at providing helpful feedback, but it was also very hard to absorb.
Yes.
There are many women and many members within our organization that are not just independent contributors, but manage a team. And I think towing that line of providing constructive feedback and like constructive criticism is hard for many women to navigate. So I'd love to drill on that a little bit.
Sure.
As we think about becoming self-aware of what our image is, it's important to be able to accept feedback so that we know how to manage that when we do find out what our image is. So, what would your guidance be to a manager that is coaching someone on their own image? And that the manager can also use this for themselves as they, are talking to their own mentor, but like, what are some tactical ways that we can think about providing helpful, tactical, constructive criticism? How do you frame it? Do you always have to lead with a positive? What are the ways you've delivered that feedback that have worked for you and have been received. And again, you can't control how someone receives it. You can only control your message. So I'll pause and let you expand on that.
I think I don't like the shit sandwich, excuse the language. I don't like the, oh, go positive, then give them the feedback, then go positive again. Everybody can see through that.
Mm-hmm.
How I like to do it is I actually start asking questions. I'll tell them, like, hey, we want to talk about perception and an image. But before I tell you what I think or what I think other people see, I want you to do a little live self-reflection with me. What are some of the areas that you think you're really strong? And I let the person think and tell me what they think. What are some of the things you think your team members appreciate the most about you? And I let them tell me. And then I'll ask, like, what is the one thing that you personally think you should improve on? What is that one thing? If there is one, if there is two, whatever it is. What are the things that you think you should work on or need help with? Let them say it. And then what do you think your peers would say if I asked so-and-so, if I asked this person? And then I ask him, because most of my managers have people reporting to them. And I'm like, so if you ask your employees, what do you think they would say your biggest strength is? What do you think they would say they would like for you to maybe work on? Like nothing like, what's your weakness? Nothing like, what do you suck at? Like none of those. And believe it or not, 90% of the time they name all of them. And then we just talk about it. And it's from them, not from me. And once they give me that, then I can say, well, I can see that, but don't be too harsh. This part is still really good, but I do agree we do need to work on this. Now, what do you think is the best way to do it? Do you want to go like, would a training class help? Is there anything that you've heard that works that I'm happy to pay for? I literally put budget aside for training and development every year.
Mm-hmm.
Some years we don't meet it all. Some years we go over it. But I put it there because we all need it. I use some of it myself to improve on things. But even our annual performance review, and I'm happy to share the template with the team. It's literally a self-reflection they do. And then I comment on it when I meet with them. But they have to tell me what were their priorities for that year that just passed, which ones they met, which ones they think they failed on. And then give me a reasoning, like, was it in your control or was it in something that you couldn't control? Which parts of it do you own? That's the key.
Mm-hmm.
What do you own in that missed performance? And what are you going to do differently next year? And then the very last one is, was this failure something we talked about the year before too? Is this like 2 years in a row? This is a weakness? Like, or something that you own that you haven't been able to tackle? Because if it's repeating, whatever we did this year to address it didn't work. Let's talk about it and see if we got to address it another way. I make it incredibly collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a sit down, I'm going to give you feedback. So-and-so said this, so I gotta tell you not to do.
Show. We love the template. I think our members will benefit from that. I will use the feedback you've provided in my professional life immediately. Like the idea of this collaborative loophole and this genuine self-reflection is such an incredible, empowering tactic versus having a manager in a performance review kind of have to laundry list weaknesses. It is such a power move to say, you tell me what your team would say. Tell me what your colleagues would say. And I think that our members that really do want to leverage these tactics will find a lot of value in doing exactly that. I know I will too. And I think our strengths are always going to be our weaknesses. I don't think there's a world where we turn weaknesses into strengths necessarily. And it's probably a waste of time to do that. So what I'm hearing from you is this ability to focus on our strengths and hone those while also being radically self-aware of what are the things holding back our image or even our performance, and working on a path towards improving them gradually year over year so that you're showing progress.
Yeah. Because
So.
here's the thing, I don't usually do plugs, but
we'll take the plugs. Yes.
I'll share with you some of my favorite books. This book called The Strength Finder. The whole premise of the book is we all have strengths, we all have some weaknesses, opportunities, whatever the term is, but focus on people's strengths and put them in areas where they would utilize those strengths and actually succeed. Mm-hmm. And as managers, look for, understand the role you're hiring for and look for those key strengths. Don't think you can bring somebody in and change it. People don't change. Honestly, working is like a marriage. You marry people thinking they're going to change. They won't. If he was a slob before you met him, he's going to be a bigger slob after you marry him. You can't change people. The other two that are simple, sweet books, they're so easy to read. They're not dense. They're super short chapters. Depending on the role, I would look at this one. They're both by Mr. Fox. Mm-hmm. How to Be a Great Boss. And the next one is How to Be a Great CEO. And they are really, really simple, matter of fact, do this, don't do that. Mm-hmm. Hire slow, fire fast. Mm-hmm. If you have a rotten apple, get rid of it. It's going to ruin the rest of your team. But it has some good ideas because honestly, the one thing I want people to be mindful of, especially those who've been with the same company for a long period of time, every company has its own culture, right? And even if you have a really nice mentor within that company, they're embedded in that culture. Sometimes you may need a different culture. You may need a different perspective. It's really good to have someone outside of the company, if you can find one, within a network to also give you feedback. And the feedback doesn't have to be negative. It could be just send you a message every now and then, just telling you, hey, you really impressed me when you did this and that. I honestly make it a habit. I don't do social media. I have LinkedIn and that's it. The company has every other platform, but I personally, as Show, I only have LinkedIn. And I do go on it just to see what colleagues and friends and whoever is doing. I make a point. I don't always comment on that. But if somebody makes an impression, I pick up my phone, I send them a text message and just say, by the way, I've been following this on LinkedIn. I'm so proud of you. I'm so impressed. Whatever it is. Those couple of words in a text message goes so much farther than writing a letter on LinkedIn as a comment. Because there is a surface level kind of shallowness to social media, mm-hmm. that when you make that personal connection, it's genuine. And that little bit of feedback you give someone, that positive feedback, it can make their day, it can make their week. It could lift them up when they're in a really crappy place. You just don't know where people are every day, but it can really make a difference. Now, I wouldn't say pick up the phone and text somebody and say, hey, I watched your webinar. You really bombed. That was terrible. Can we talk about it? I wouldn't do that. But maybe next time you see him over coffee and say, hey, by the way, I noticed this. Did you mean to do that? Or what was that? Tell me what it was about. Tell me what your thought process was. That's another way to give constructive feedback, asking people is like, hey, I was a little taken back, or I was a little surprised by that. Help me understand it better. Can you tell me what your thought process was? What was the message you were trying to get across when you did this in the meeting? Or when you said X to so and so? I didn't fully understand it. Can you elaborate on it? And then you might hear them say, oh yeah, I lost my cool. I shouldn't have done that. Or they might say, yeah, I was really frustrated because he did this or this and that before the meeting. Then you can say, well, the rest of the team didn't know that happened before the meeting, but next time you might want to like at least kind of give a little background or approach it this way, or meet with the guy one-on-one. Maybe he didn't mean it, like don't do it in a group setting. If you can do anything to help somebody's image, I think as women, sometimes I feel like other women within the company are less supportive of the women than some of the men are. And watch out is, don't just go to somebody else and talk about what happened in a meeting. If one of your female coworkers did something that wasn't proper, be brave enough to go talk to them one-on-one, because maybe they didn't know. Like be that support for someone else. I know we are talking about like find your own support group, but don't be afraid to be that person for someone else, for somebody younger, a junior person, somebody new to the company, even if they're not junior, who don't fully understand the dynamics and the culture. There is a lot we can do with very little effort. It would take very little time if we think that somebody else's success is important, and we're not just 100% focused on us and where is show going to go.
Show, I think that is a beautiful place to end. I think that when we pave it forward in helping other people on their own journey, it's not only a benefit to us, it's a benefit to them. And that is the whole purpose of FWA. So
It is.
what a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
So thrilled for our members to pull out all of these tactics. And I just would like to say thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys thinking of me, and thank you for doing this. This is quite a project. I'm looking forward to getting all the other sessions.